Denton, Alabama. I didn't exactly picture myself coming back here. This was never home. This wasn't the farm and the endless golden wheat fields, the buffalo grass and tractors plowing the earth. These weren't my friends. This was not Boise City, not Oklahoma. Denton was the orchard where my family toiled to keep us children fed. Denton was the school where I got into trouble, hanging around with Joe Schwartz and his gang. Denton was where I was that no-good Okie, and I showed them that they was right. No, Denton was never Oklahoma. Never home. But at least the sky wasn't blackened by dusters, making midday into midnight. Thank God for second chances and well-connected uncles. This is Red Moon Role-Playing.
We return to Denton, Alabama, where last we left our heroes. They had been enjoying a quiet drink in Jimmy's Bar and Grill. A couple of them natives of Denton, one of them from far away across the sea. None of them really have a great love for this town. One was drawn by family, another by work. And yet, here we are, called together at a point of emergency. A young woman clearly in distress, found in the doorway of the local watering hole. These three heroes standing over her, asking what happened, to which she responded that something terrible had happened to Chip Johnson at Makeout Point, and judging from the raked of talons across her chest and the blood oozing through her top, whatever had attacked her and Chip was dangerous indeed. And so we return at the point that she has just spoken and passed out on that doorstep.
We need to call for help. Get the paramedics here. Call for an ambulance. I yell to Jimmy, call for an ambulance.
Oh yeah, sure. He's already getting on the phone. In this part of, Denton doesn't have its own hospital. You think it's probably going to be a good 30 minutes, maybe even an hour before a wagon gets here, so you may have to do some stabilizing yourself.
Definitely, yes. I look at her wounds. They're quite serious, yes? Are they life-threatening based on my knowledge of medicine?
It doesn't appear to you, from what little you know of the manner of her attack, that anything has punctured an internal organ or scored her too deeply, but it has ripped at her flesh in 4 areas, and if the bleeding isn't stopped, she could bleed out.
Jim, do you have a first aid kit?
Sure, he tosses you one from the other side of the bar. Everyone now is paying attention. At first they were quite happy to blow this off as kids having fun, but now people are stood around, scratching heads, looking concerned, generally not sure what to do with themselves. There's a couple of guys pacing. There's a general sense of fear. What could have happened to this woman? Was she attacked, maybe by a gator, perhaps?
I've been sitting on my chair, sort of watching from a bit behind, but when everyone starts gathering around, I feel like I'm kind of starting to get left out, and I go up and I join them around the girl, and I look down at her, and I look at those wounds. Has she been scratched by some kind of bird or something?
Could be. It could definitely be. You're no ornithologist, but you don't know of any land-based creature that would scratch its victim like that, with fingers so far apart. It does appear almost to be like talons. You're just not sure. Certainly none of the local fauna that you're aware of would attack someone like this.
So I say that out loud. Looks like maybe some kind of eagle or something swept down on her.
I frown a little. watching the scene unfold. I am letting all these young folk run over to this poor girl, but I am intrigued. Although this young man's concept of eagles seems preposterous to me. Eagles don't fly down and attack people.
Her eyes snap open, and she starts babbling. And then she passes out again.
I stand there and I just grow silent.
Anybody got any medical training? I'm beginning to apply the bandages and trying to stop the bleeding as best as I can. Of course, it's easier if there's help, so I'm calling for someone to come and help me. Is there anyone that answers the call?
I step up and I say, well, sometimes we have accidents over at the skyscrapers and the construction sites. I'm trying to sort of take the scene, and maybe I can help out here. I'm sure I can do something. And I kneel down and I open the first aid kit. How well do I know this Jonas Faulkner?
Well, that's up to you. It's quite possible you both grew up here. You know, you maybe knew each other when you were younger. And this may be the first time you've encountered each other again in some time.
Yeah, I look at him and I know you. BC? That's your name?
That's right. You're Jonas, right?
Yeah, we went to the same school. Hey, hold here. I'm gonna apply the bandages. I think I can stop this bleeding.
Okay. Moving up and I'm trying to apply some pressure where he looked. I'm not completely sure about human anatomy and stuff like that, but maybe I can figure it out if that's where the blood's sort of oozing from.
I'm gonna make you roll a medicine and intellect, please.
I roll 5 d10s.
Mm-hmm.
And I get 1 success.
A single success. That's enough to sterilize the wound and tourniquet it. You not stitched a wound up in a very long time, and so you're not even attempting to try. For the time being, you're attempting to just stuff it with bandage and wrap it up tightly and hope that someone with a little more training turns up to do the job properly.
Yes, the professionals are coming, and my medical training is very basic, but hopefully this will help her avoid death here at the very least. It feels really good to be working with BC again, like we're on the same team again. I nod in approval to him, looking down at what we have created together here.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself that I didn't quite like him taking the lead on this. I would have preferred if it was me, sort of showing my skills and perhaps him backing me up. But I feel a sort of rivalry because he could always carry on with football plays, a bit longer than I because of my injury. But it's still a relation. It's still, be it rivalry or friendship. But still, I nod to myself and I say, well, that's not too bad.
No, there's a few whoops and hollers. People are clearly confident that you've stabilised this girl, but there's also a fair amount of worry too. Whether she's in shock, you can't tell, but she certainly seems to be acting feverish, which is very strange so soon after a wound. Her head is flicking left and right quite rapidly, and you can see tremors in her arms and legs. It's not what you'd imagine from a wound like this. It's as if she's suffering some great nightmare in her unconscious state.
I am watching the 2 younger men administer to this girl. It's quite a startling sight, really. But something is very strange, isn't it? The language she was speaking. I heard it. So strange. What is it? I'm thinking to myself. Is it like Latin or something from the Middle Eastern part of the world? Do I have any reference at all as to what this language could be?
Let's go for an integrity and intellect roll.
Indeed. I shall be rolling 7 dice. 2 successes.
2 successes, okay. You definitely feel like you've heard the language before, but you can't pinpoint it. It's as if it is from a dream. You certainly can't attach it to any modern-day civilization, and you're not enough of a linguist, certainly not a historian, to be able to put it somewhere more ancient.
And yet, with 2 successes, could I use a 1 success stunt at this point?
You could.
Could I use "This reminds me," the stunt used when something just rings in your memory from some random book or some random part of your life, and you just remember a little extra information about something?
Yes, you remember from where you've heard these words, and it was in a dream. It was definitely not within your waking hours. In those nights immediately following your own personal tragedy that for now the rest of the group don't know, you continued to suffer nightmares, and that felt completely natural to you. Why wouldn't you suffer nightmares after such a loss? But you recall in every one of those nightmares you were hearing gibberish words you just assumed meant nothing. But now, for the very first time, especially for the very first time waking, you're hearing them again.
I confess a small sheen of sweat runs down my brow. This is startling information. I take another sip of my brandy. I actually get up, using my cane to support me, and gently make my way over. I remark loud, "The girl is feverish. Should fetch her someone fetch her something for her head. Get her some water."
A bar mat is wrung out and water poured over it. It's a makeshift by all means, but it seems to cool her and calm her down a little. One of the other patrons of the bar attempts to feed her a few drops of water.
I try to support her head and lift her up a bit.
Everyone here is pretty practical, and she while she doesn't recover consciousness, she does seem to break from her dream, at least for now.
So what was that she said about Makeout Point? Chip Johnson was in danger?
That's what she said.
You hear an old voice from corner of the bar. "Chip Johnson? My grandson? He's in danger? Oh, hell!" Old Jack stands up. He's a one-legged old sailor from around these parts. Usually you don't find him anywhere outside of Jimmy's Bar and Grill. But old Jack Johnson is well known around these parts for legend, if not anything else. Word has it he once pulled in a whole basking shark on one single fishing line.
Jack, is that you? You in here as well?
Did you say my grandson's in danger? Hell, I better get to my daughter and son and tell him.
Well, I'm gonna head down to Makeout Point. Who's coming with me?
I will certainly be joining. Can we call the sheriff and have him meet us there? Whatever has happened could be threatening, and we need to ensure that we can handle whatever is there. And perhaps look for clues. Something has obviously gone very wrong.
"I'm on it," shouts Jimmy. He's already on the phone to the sheriff. At your beck and call.
Perfect. Then, well, what are we waiting for? Come on. I say to BC. Let's get to Makeout Point and find out what's happened.
I hold out my hand to you, and I say, "Good to see you again, Jonas. It's been far too long."
I take your hand. Yeah, it really has. It's good to be back here.
And I squeeze a little too hard, and I smile. And then I go down and I go find my car in the parking.
All right.
What's Dr. White's plan during all of this?
I shall, as the younger man runs off, leaving Agent Faulkner for a moment, step over, and I shall say, "Young man, perhaps I could be of some assistance in your investigation. There is something unusual about this circumstance, I'm sure you'd agree. I have some experience in animals. Well, a basic education at least. Maybe I can offer you some assistance that you might not be able to see yourself."
That certainly sounds like it could be helpful. why don't you join us in our car, and we'll be heading to Makeout Point now. Just be careful, yeah? It might be dangerous. I cannot guarantee your safety.
Well, I'm sure you'll be able to deal with that. Dr. White, pleasure to make your acquaintance, Agent
Faulkner with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I take your hand.
I give you a very frail shake. Quite keen, perhaps, not to be shaking your hand for too long. But then again, I am an older man, and my other hand is firmly on my cane.
Yes, well, let's head out to the car. I will go to mine first and pick up my badge and my gun as well. Make sure that I have a spare clip with me. I don't know. There's just something about this that's really, really wrong.
You recover your items from your car and all assemble around BC's station wagon, where you climb in and make your way down to Makeout Point. Alabama isn't a state known for its cliff sides. It's all pretty low and swampy. So occasionally when there's a rocky outcropping just outside of off the beaten track and down one of the dirt trails, it's not uncommon in a town like this to become the hangout for young people, whether it's to show off their cars, their dance moves late at night, or to designate this location Makeout Point. And indeed, even when Jonas and BC were young men, it was around this place you remember you would have got your first kiss from a lucky girl or young man in Denton. Not that you would have voiced such a thing to your elders.
That's right. Makeout Point, Martha. Those were the days. Well, just hope whatever we find there won't be something that we can't handle.
So who's in the car now? Is it it's me and the agent? I mean Jonas and the doctor.
Yeah, as we come into to the car, this is Dr. White. He has some experience working with animals. He has some knowledge that may be of use to us. He has volunteered to join us.
Indeed, boy. I believe I might be able to offer you some assistance in this matter. Don't worry, I'll keep out of the way, for the most part.
I flash a big smile and I say, "Well, nice to meet you, Doctor. You speak funny. Where's you from?"
London. Have you heard of such a place, boy?
Well, of course, you're talking about the capital of England.
Exactly. I give him a very stern nod and seem to let the matter end there.
So, what made you come down this way, Doctor?
Business.
Well, that sounds a bit strange. There's not much business in Denton, especially with the fishing as low as it is. But he doesn't look like much of a fisherman either.
You came down to Denton for business?
Indeed. Now, are we going to investigate the possible dangerous scenario or not? And I shall start rapping my cane against the car door, expecting it to be opened for me.
I make sure that the door is open for you and let you in and nod to BC. All right, let's head out.
The drive to Makeout Point is peaceful enough. Certainly there isn't traffic on these kinds of roads late at night, and you only pass another car, a single car, heading in the other direction once. You reach Makeout Point, overlooking the sea, and you can see quite clearly Chip Johnson's open-top hot rod is sat there. The lights are still on and the engine is still running, but even as you pull up, you can see that Chip is nowhere in sight.
Yeah, that's Chip's car, all right. I pull up and I turn up the engine.
I get out of the car. I pick up my flashlight and I take my gun also. This looks very possibly dangerous. I start to move towards the car. Sir? Anybody there?
You can hear something. You can definitely pick up something. Could you roll an integrity and cunning, please, Agent Faulkner?
I can indeed. Integrity I have 1, and cunning I have 3. Gives me 4 dice. And I get 1 success.
Okay, a single success. You can hear movement down at the water's edge. So a little further down from the rocky bluff that you're currently parked on. It could just be water splashing against the rocks. It might be something a little more.
I look around as I come out from the car, and I go to open the door for the doctor. And I'll look around and I say, did she run all the way to the bar from here? And look, there's no sign of other cars, are there?
No, there are not. Looking around, and there is a spotted blood trail that you can see from around where you're parked, and yeah, you think she probably did. That probably would have taken her at least 15 minutes at a full run. No wonder she passed out shortly after, given the wounds, but it could have been adrenaline that carried her feet.
Well, I go over to Chip Johnson's car and look it over.
There appears to have been a struggle. That much is clear. The driver's side door is not only open, it is wrenched almost off its hinge. Why that would even be necessary with an open-top car if trying to snatch someone from it isn't at all obvious. But part of the lining of the car's seat is torn, and as both you and Agent Faulkner sweep the area with torchlight and, of course, standing in the headlights of your own car, you can see there's a fairly thick smear of blood running from the car and towards the sea.
God damn it. Someone almost tore this door straight off.
I look at it very, very worried, and I start to move down towards the water where the blood trails are leading to, fearing that I will find the worst.
Yes, I shall slowly get out of the vehicle, having the door opened for me by BC.
So I'm going to ask Dr. White, who's taking the time to survey whilst the other two are stalking ahead, which makes sense given the nature of these characters, to do the integrity and cunning in this case for the observation of the area and whatever calculations you can bring forth. So if you get multiple successes, you can break them down into different clues. Bear in mind, if you're doing an investigation challenge like this, you will always start with 1 automatic success.
Interesting. And then I roll my cunning and integrity, you said?
Yes, please.
Very good. 4 dice.
Bear in mind, you do have 3 rewrites in your writer's pool as well, so if there are any dice that you want to re-roll, you feel free to spend those rewrites, although generally it's by common agreement with the rest of the group.
I gain 2 successes, so as well as the raw information, I shall have 2 additional things I can do this scene. I get out of the car and begin to overlook the situation. I am particularly interested in the vehicle itself and these blood trails that go to the water. What do I get from my general observation of the scene?
From your general observation of the scene, so here's your first interpretation that I'm giving you. Well, raw information is essentially what everyone else has already gained, but the one extra thing, and this is the thing that perhaps the other two didn't pick up on, is if the door was wrenched and someone was dragged out of this car, it would imply that whoever attacked was attacking from ground level and probably lower than the door, maybe even smaller than the car. As noted, if it was a large assailant, let's say a bear, you would imagine that the driver would have been pulled out of the car and the door wouldn't have been tampered with. But something at door level has pulled that door open through sheer force, so it could be something very small which doesn't run at all intuitively to your mind with any creatures that you're aware of.
I will also use another of my successes to ask a question. The question is, what sort of force was required to force the door off in such a way? I'm pretty sure I can make a calculation quickly in my head.
And this is the strange thing. Taking that brief time to examine the hinge, look at the damage done to the door, it's almost like it's been pressurized off. You're examining the hinge, and it's like something just filled the cavity between the metal and the fabric and just exploded it backwards. And as you examine the seat and the tears in it, that pressurized feeling again, you can see lots of strange Icarus liquid just coating the seat, and you're not again entirely sure what it is, but it's not dissimilar to an explosive, something that would be planted, charged, and then exploded. It's very, very strange.
So almost as if it's not like the door was with a hand ripped off, but more that something filled the space, and the pressure caused it to buckle off. I very quickly I always carry a few little vials and samples on my person. I'm taking a sample of this strange substance on the car seats.
Your theory is borne out when you realise there are no claw or talon marks on the door, which means either someone opened it with the handle with enough force to just wrench it off, or your theory is correct and it was pretty much exploded from its hinge.
I will begin taking the sample. I've not said a single word at this stage. It's more like I've slowly hobbled over, been looking things over, and now you'd see me reaching into the car and starting to take a sample of something.
Okay, so moving on to our other two who are walking down toward the beach.
Well, I would have gone back to my car first and get the trunk open to get my crowbar. That would make sense for me. If there's such violence going on that there's, blood flowing out on the car seat and everything.
Yes, and Agent Faulkner is shining his torch towards the water, towards where the blood trail is leading, trying to see if he can find... The body must have just been pulled into the shallow water there, surely. It must be here. I start to move closer.
Agent Faulkner sees it first, and BC will be a turn behind. As you scan the horizon with your torch, you look at the ground, you're looking for where the trail might lead. Initially, you're sure this is going to lead straight into the water, but not the case. It's dragged down onto the pebbled beach and down the shoreline, just away, and you can see where it goes. The blood trail is thick enough that you're wondering if Chip could even survive such an evisceration. But where the trail leads is a place you haven't even thought of for a decade of your life. Since you left this part of the world, you've just completely forgotten the caves down on Denton Beach, where once upon a time it's said that Cuban smugglers would bring rum and other alcohol up to the people of Alabama. Certainly that's what the stories were told, and other stories went that this is where fishermen used to have their bawdiest parties. But there were also haunting tales about the caves, about people who would explore them and go missing, or that murder victim whose body was found down here about 15 years ago, and the killer was never located. And that's where the blood trail goes, into that cave beneath Makeout Point's bluff.
I wait for BC to catch up with me, and I point towards the cave. That's where the trails lead.
What's going on here, Jonas? Have you ever seen something like this?
Never. I am not sure what we are up against here, but if it's able to do what it looks like it's been able to do, it must be dangerous. I would normally suggest that we wait for backup, but we don't know when the sheriff will arrive, and it is still possible that Chip is alive. Would you dare join me venturing into this cave to see if we can find Chip?
Sure. I mean, you got your gun and everything. I'm sure it'd be fine between the two of us. Maybe if it took Chip by surprise, whatever this thing is, it's... I mean, that would be reasonable. That the two of us, if we were ready, wouldn't be a problem. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You think it's some kind of bear or something?
I don't know. There's only one way to find out, though. I say, a little bit dramatically, and I nod towards the cave, and I start taking the lead, shining my torch, and I have my gun in my other hand.
It's at this point, having taken my samples, that I've appeared quite eerily behind BC, and in response to his last statement, I simply remark, "You are extremely naive, boy, if you think a bear did such things. No, there is far more here than we could possibly know. Come, we must investigate, but be ready, perhaps, to accept that your weaponry might not be of any use."
As if to punctuate Dr. White's statement, there's a sudden "Ah!" in the cave up ahead.
I start running towards it. Come on, he's still alive.
It sounds like it, yes. And I start rushing as well towards the caves.
Is Dr. White hanging back?
I will follow, but quite pointedly do so at a very slow, ambling pace. I'm in no rush to get there, but I will observe.
Faulkner and Rosberg enter the cave, again, sweeping their torchlight around, trying to gain a sight. You remember them being pretty deep, and at high tide, pretty much inaccessible, so staying here for any duration would be dangerous, but right now your concern is for Chip Johnson and whether he's still alive in here. The blood trail tapers off, oddly, and there's no body at the end of it. You can go deeper into the cave, and therefore deeper underground, but you can see no body, no footprints, just a thick, gelatinous, ooze-like substance that seems to start where the blood finishes.
I shine my light on it. Is it a substance that I have ever seen? I mean, I've seen men be messed up by artillery fire, blown to bits, pulverized almost. Is it that? Is it something like what I would have seen in the war?
As you're fixating on this gunge, your eyes focusing on it for a little, just maybe a little too long, could you roll your resolve and your integrity, please? Integrity is clearly the skill of the day.
Yes, then I have 4 dice for that. And I get 0 successes, but no ones.
You feel the need to get the hell out of the cave. You're not compelled to do so, but you do not want to be in here with this.
We gotta get out of here, BC. This is messed up. This is too messed up. We gotta get back up, and the sheriff is on his way. Come on. I start pulling at him.
I grab him by the shoulder and I said, "Now hang on. What if he's... You just heard him screaming there. He might be still alive."
The tracks end here, man. Can't you see it? That's Chip Johnson. I have no idea how it's possible, but that's all that's left of him.
That's not Chip Johnson. What do you mean there's slime there on the ground?
As you kneel down, almost to touch the slime, and say, "Look, it ain't nothing but slime."
Yeah.
It recedes. It retracts from you rapidly. It pulls back like water flowing down a hill, just...
What the hell? And I freeze where I am, and No, actually, I don't freeze. I start back.
Come on, BC. That is not possible.
You bump into Dr. White, who's stood in the cave entrance.
Indeed. Have I seen this substance, or by the time I arrive, has it already retreated away into the dark?
It's already retreated by the time you arrive.
I give them both a look. Well, not feeling so brave now, are we?
Who are you? Giddy? Do you want to go in there first, old man?
I shall peer into the cave. I'm unsure how much my own curiosity outweighs my common sense for walking into a cave by myself.
Well, that's up to you to decide.
I shall motion for the torch to be shone and go, I just wish to have a quick look. I'm not going to go any further if the agent here thinks that's a bad idea, but we would be remiss if we just ran away. Come, steel yourselves.
You can see the blinking of the blue light up on the bluff. It would appear that the sheriff has arrived, although he personally has not joined you yet.
I'll go get the sheriff, make sure that he comes here. Don't do anything too dangerous, all right? BC, make sure that he's safe. And I start making my way towards the sheriff, saying that I'm getting backup, but of course it's to get the hell out of that place.
Leaving BC and White down in the cave. So, tell me, Dr. White, how far inside this cave are you intruding?
I shall slowly begin entering, my cane clattering against the stone floor of this cave. I keep going until I can see anything of interest. I'm not going to get lost in a cave, but come, is there anything here? It seemed like they saw something before I arrived. What did they see?
You can see exactly where the blood trail ends, and as I described, it tapers off to the point that it's almost unnatural how it ends. It's like someone had been dragging a thick paint brush all the way from the car down to the cave, and it just narrows to a triangular point, and then nothing. You know something here alarmed them at this very point, but you would have to go deeper, you think, to find it. I'm going to, maybe for the last time this session, make you roll one last integrity and cunning roll, please, Dr. White, as you are halfway inside the cave. BC, are you following him close behind, or do you think your resolve wouldn't allow for that?
No, I feel I don't like Jonas running off like that, but no, I think I'm all right for the minute. I'm not sure what that was, or what actually just happened, but I have been asked to keep an eye on the doctor, so I'm gonna stay a few paces behind him with my crowbar squeezed between my whiting knuckles.
Do I get an extra dice to this roll due to my trope of seen too much, which is 1 extra dice to resist mental and social influences?
Not yet, but possibly soon.
Very well. 4 dice. No successes.
And any ones?
No.
Okay, no botches then. That's probably for the good. You strain to hear and look deeper in the cave. It's as if the darkness consumes the light the further in you go. Certainly, if there was any motion, if there was any life down there in the form of Chip Johnson, it's not kicking, it's not screaming, and it's not making any scrabblings at the stones now. It is all but still, and the only sound you can hear other than BC's breath on the back of your neck is the crash of waves outside where the sea is hitting the shore.
I pause for a moment, taking time to wipe the sweat from my brow. I run a hand through my silver hair, kept quite short, such as my appearance, a reasonably Finnish man in his late 50s. I take a few steps back and regard the boy. BC, is that his name? Yes. Perhaps we should go back. I don't see anything more to be seen here for the moment.
There was, you see me, also, sweating a bit now, standing there in my nice checkered shirt and, braces. There was some kind of slimy thing just before you came. It was right there, and I point where the, blood trail ends.
Slimy thing. I give him a little incredulous look, but then I do whip out the sample I took earlier. did by any chance look similar to this substance I have here?
I squint in the semi-darkness. Can I see?
It did look exactly like that. And as you are mouthing yes, you start hearing a gurgling from down in the cave. It's quite full-throated and louder than you'd expect, almost like a drain emptying a great cavernous bath, and it belches and gulps and almost roars. Perhaps it's an underwater cave emptying of water, or maybe it's something else.
Have I ever heard that sound before?
No.
Well, I whip around and I say, what was that?
I'm uncertain, but perhaps we can investigate later. Come, let us depart, and I start making maybe a bit more of a hurry to leave the cave. I'm not feeling confident now with just this young man and his crowbar. I'd rather have hit the man with a gun.
Meanwhile, back up at Makeout Point, Agent Faulkner has arrived to where the sheriff has parked his wagon. The sheriff is someone you don't know. He wasn't in this town when you left, and you've not encountered him since your return. So this is the first time you've ever seen this man. Quite tall, quite blank-faced. He's a white man with hair slicked back. You could quite easily see him fitting in among the other Hoover boys up in Washington. But for whatever reason, he's a sheriff down in Denton, Alabama.
As I get closer, I stop my run, and I sort of straighten my clothes and make sure that I look proper, and I approach him.
He shines his light straight into your eyes before realizing who you are and lowering it.
I'm just gonna reach for my badge, alright? And I pull up my FBI badge. Agent Faulkner, Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Reese. Sheriff Reese. You that out-of-town boy.
Yeah, you spoke to Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. Said something had happened down at Makeout Point. I can see something happen, alright. Looks like, someone was attacked.
Chip Johnson.
Well, having a bit of a party. Mm-hmm. Chip Johnson, that's the name I was given too.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my deputies to arrive, but what with it being late, that requires them to get out of bed, and none of them are fast movers, if you know what I mean. Ha 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 ha! His laugh is definitely forced.
Certainly, yes, I understand. We scouted ahead, me and some of, one of the two of the people from the bar, and we followed the trails into the caves. You know the ones.
Oh, I've heard of them. I can't say I've walked them myself, but I've heard of them, that's right. I suggest you go fetch your friends now. I don't want them interfering with my crime scene, you understand? While I have every respect for you Hoover boys, this ain't your jurisdiction.
He is correct in that, of course. It is not my jurisdiction. I might be able to take command, but, well, of course. This could be something big. Yes. Perhaps this is even something that the FBI might be interested in. Your jurisdiction, you say? I believe that I was first on the scene here, and well, there are things that the FBI are investigating here. I believe we will take the lead on this, I say, and I use my license and registration, please, trademark if I can, to try to take jurisdiction of this from this local sheriff, if I can.
Oh wow, okay, well this is probably going to be a roll with a complication or two. Because without going into details of what why you are entitled to take this case on, the sheriff is probably going to be quite reluctant. Therefore, you are going to require 3 successes or more in order to swing this with Sheriff Reese. But I wish you luck. You can... what skill did you attach, or attribute did you attach license and registration to?
It was attached to command.
Okay, so let's go for command and manipulation or presence would probably work, yeah.
Great. Then I have manipulation 4, I have command 1, and license and registration. If I use that, that gives me an additional 2 dice.
2.
Right?
That's right. And if you succeed on this, and bear in mind you need 3 successes, you can take directorial control.
So, I shall roll 7 d10s then. And I get 2 successes.
Ooh, 2 successes. Do you want to use one of the rewrites in your writer's pool? You've got 3 in them, as no one's... Actually, you have failed 2 rolls since, and I have added them, so you do have 5 rewrites in your pool. This might be a good opportunity, if you think there is a cinematic that would be appropriate for this scene instead.
I shall use the cinematic, yes. I shall use deleted scene. And we shall go back to before I came to the bar. I had a document prepared that gives me full jurisdiction of any maritime incidents that were to happen in this area. There's, of course, more to why I'm here than what I have revealed thus far. So, yes, I have prepared a document that I could use to persuade any local law enforcement that might get in the way that I have every right to fully investigate what is going on here.
So with that document slipped into your glove compartment, we jump forward in time to where you are stood opposite Sheriff Reese, and again he asks you, or states to you, "The jurisdiction in this town is mine, Hoover boy. I suggest you and your friends go back to the bar or wherever it is you're staying."
Well, I'm afraid that it's not quite that simple, you see, and I bring out the document. Here is the document that gives me jurisdiction of this area. You can show it to your superiors if you need to, but I assure you everything is as it should be, and this is an FBI matter, although you're very welcome to give us support and lend a hand as we investigate what has happened here.
If you were intending on antagonizing the local sheriff, you succeed. The words you use certainly get under his skin, and as he's reading the letter from J. Edgar himself, it's making his lip curl in a sneer, and when you mention him going to his superiors, he practically spits in response. "That's enough out of you. Fine. This crime, whatever it is, it's on you, which means if you don't happen to solve it, that's on you as well. Yeah, you get the support of my deputies, Hoover boy, but I got other fish to fry." He pretty much scrunches your letter up and claps it back into your hand before turning his back on the crime scene and climbing back into his car.
Yes. Well, that gives me a little bit of freedom here. I think as I put the letter back, I'm happy I had that prepared. And it looks like it was necessary. I suppose I feel a little bit more resolute, or a little bit braver again.
I would say so. Now, as your other 2 companions join you back on the bluff just as the sheriff is driving away, quite inexplicably to them, this is where we're going to do a little bit of accounting. BC has suffered 3 mental injuries as a result of spotting exactly what happened with the ooze passing away. How that works is BC is classed as suffering just a mental flesh wound. Essentially, your mind is scratched, bruised, or otherwise superficially hurt. BC, all dice pools that fall within your archetype, so make a note which skills you picked for your archetype, will gain 1 die because you are suffering a mental wound. However, because we have just gained some resolve, I would say, not in a statistical sense, but as Agent Faulkner has just bolstered his confidence, he would have also suffered 3 injuries for seeing what he saw, but he's kind of put that to the back of his mind now. He's only suffering 2. Make a note of that, Agent Faulkner, because if you suffer another single one, you will also be just a flesh wound. And when it comes to Dr. White, he is only suffering 1 mental injury, which means he needs to suffer another 2 to reach just a flesh wound. If you keep that noted, because usually at the end of a scene I will tell you whether you have suffered any further injuries to your psyche, and if you have, that's going to send you in a spiralling path of greater dice pools, but a greater risk of losing your mind forever.
So are we coming back to up there to see the sheriff take off?
That's right.
And as I come up and I see him get into his car and taking off, I look to Jonas and I say, where's the sheriff going?
He's going to make sure the deputies get here. The FBI will take over the investigation here. We have found something here. That much I think is clear to you as well. This is important to the Bureau, and I will come to the bottom of this.
As you make that statement, feeling quite proud of your actions on this night, taking command of the scene, that's when you hear the gurgling roar as well. It could just be water hitting the shore, hitting the bluffs in a curious way, but it sounds all too organic, all too animalistic, and all 3 of you hear it. Not only with your ears, but also with your minds. A gurgling roar combined with a pained scream emerging from the water.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the campaign Terror at Makeout Point, for They Came From Beneath the Sea. Our Game Master was the Gentleman Gamer, Matthew Dawkins, who also created the game. They Came From Beneath the Sea is published by Onyx Path Publishing, and we would like to extend a big thank you to them and to Matthew for doing this actual play project with us. The music for this episode is taken from the Cryo Chamber collaborations Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, Azathoth, Shub-Niggurath, and Nyarlathotep, and is used with permission from Cryo Chamber. Please check out cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more of their lovely dark ambient. Finally, a big thank you to all of our Patreon backers. Creating all of this content would not be possible without your generous support on Patreon. You give us loads of energy, you help us cover our costs, and you open up time for us to record and edit. So, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you ever so much. See you again soon.